So I'm Terry and I'm going to be making a YouTube video, and I got my trusted ball. If you'd have seen the last YouTube video, you would have seen this ball in there. Last video. And why? Well, because it has significance to what I'm going to talk about. So I was talking about in the last video, I don't know whether you saw it or not, so I'm going to recap it really quickly here. So imagine this is the Earth, and you know, Earth has lots of nice pressure. Pressure allows us to walk around without the need of a spacesuit. It also allows the hydrogen and oxygen gas to become a liquid, which is great for life. However, if we take the moon for example, the moon has none of these things. Literally, no pressure, because it has no atmosphere, and it has no liquid water on the surface. So, if we were to take a dome, our pressure dome for example, and we were to take the moon for example, so imagine this is the Earth, we put a balloon around it and we blow up the balloon until it reaches the same pressure that we feel on Earth. And then we pop our dome on top of the moon. Lovely. Now if you notice these black lines here, two of them, 1 and 2, they go all the way around our moon. Okay? So now we have a dome. We've got pressure, so we can make liquid water inside here now. We also don't need a spacesuit if we were to walk around in there, which is great. We can grow food. And then there's the next thing that we will need, which is power. So if you were to take this here is my little drawing of a solar train, not very good, but still, you get the picture. So this is a train with carriage upon carriage upon carriage upon carriage upon carriage of solar panels. That's it. It's just basically a train of solar panels that expands quite a large area on the moon. So it covers a large area. So our train would be this big, carriage after carriage of just nothing but solar panels. Hear me out. And then we have our train track that goes all the way around the top of the moon. And our solar train would sit there. Now, in order to understand this, you would need to understand a little bit about how the sun or the light operates on the moon. And most people believe that the dark side of the moon is dark. It has no light. It never sees light. Not true. Sorry to pop your bubble. Another one that most people don't understand is the moon spins. Yes, that's right. The moon also spins. It is not also going around us, but it's also spinning as well. Hard to get your head around that. Anyway, so what this means is we have 12 days of light. So we've got light here for 12 days. And as the moon slowly orbits our Earth, if you like, and the sun, obviously the big bright thing, is shining a lot of light down on this. It's actually covering all of the moon, the light is. Eventually the light covers the whole of the moon. But you don't have 24 hours like we do here. So we got 12 hours dark, 12 hours light. You've got constant 12 days of light. Continuously for 12 days. So this kind of makes it really hard for scientists to understand how we're going to generate power on the moon with this type of scenario. Considering batteries don't last very long, there's no way we get them to last for just 12 hours worth of light and then the rest of it they're in darkness and you have to run off of batteries. Solar panels wouldn't work in that scenario, let's say. So what about we build some nuclear technology? Let's say we make a nuclear power station on the moon. Yeah, again, it's okay. Number one, it'd be very expensive to get this on the moon. Number two is if it was to have some sort of meltdown on the moon and it goes critical, this could impact our magnetic field, which is not very good. Some experiments they did do with nuclear technology back in the day when they shot them up and made a massive mushroom cloud out somewhere in the sea somewhere. One thing they noticed was this like northern lights. So that gives you a good indication that nuclear activity could end up disrupting our magnetic field. Magnetic field being disrupted means that we could get a lot of solar radiation, and that is not good, especially if we have a lot of CME activity, coronal mass ejections, come hitting on the Earth. That's not a good day for us. So they'd probably think on and think, probably not going to be putting nuclear activity there, just for this example, or scenario could unfold. So, what's the next best thing? Well, here, we put a train there. A train that covers a large amount of the moon one side, and it has nothing but solar panels on it, and as the moon orbits, this solar train would move with the light, if you understand that. So it would be able to go very slowly, so be it, but it would go with and move with the light. So in a sense, it would chase the light. Now, that could then feed power into our dome, and into our dome we could make things like, not that we would need to, but we could heat the dome if we wanted to. But that I'm going to get into further on in the video about heating and cooling. So probably won't want to put all your money on that and your energy into that. So the next best thing with this would be to put lots and lots of cables from the tracks into the dome, and these would power your lights. And here's how it would work. The dark side of the moon, the part that's in darkness, the light side would power the dark side, and then it would reverse round depending on where the sun was on the moon's surface at the time. Now, why would you use solar panels? Well, I don't know whether you know this, but solar panels work so well on the moon. They work absolutely fantastically. They work better than they do on the Earth, and the reason for that is there's lots of reasons. Number one, we don't have to worry about these things called, what are they again, the white fluffy things? Oh yeah, clouds. We don't have to worry about clouds. There's no cloud covering. Your solar panels are practically getting all of this energy, and they get a lot more energy. So I'm not 100% sure here, but here, thinking out of the box, I think because we have our atmosphere, it scatters light a lot better. And with this scattering of light, we really want this on the panel, and I think it's all to do with photons, if I get that right. Protons, photons, yeah, so photons, whoosh, hit into the panel and that. But we don't have this problem of an atmosphere to scatter these around. So it's a bit more direct, and this would then be able to give us this absolutely beautiful amount of power, an insane amount of power, providing we kept the train always in the light. So that's why we have the train. But before we get there, I'm now going to reverse the camera around and show you a few pictures of, first of all, we would need to do a few things before we got there. Mainly making these railway tracks. Robotics would be a great start. So, as of this, I'm gonna now go on to the next bit. So, bear with me. So before we go getting ourselves too excited about the railway track and everything else, there would be a few things that we would need to do. Now you'll have to forgive my drawings, and you might not be able to read the text here, but it doesn't matter. All we're interested in are the pictures. So if we take a look at this here, we've got Earth, obviously, nice, hey? And we've got the International Space Station here, and we've got this new thing called the Lunar Space Station. And these red rocket type looking things are called solar pods or storage pods. And their objective is to send the materials that we need to be able to build and colonize the moon. They send these to the moon, and they dock with the Lunar Space Station, and so forth and so on. And eventually, they will completely dock with the Lunar Space Station, and then what we will have is lots of storage pods full of useful things and a place to live if you need somewhere to live in the meantime, because there's nothing being built on here just yet. This is merely preparing for it, and we would need to get all of the stuff required to build this operation would be stored in here. Once we were at this stage where we're double checking we've got everything and there's nothing else going to be sent from Earth, and then it's time to start bringing these down to the moon. Now, I've only picked the top of the moon and the bottom of the moon for now. And there's a good reason for that. So it's because here and here we have more of an opportunity to capture this light effect as it orbits, and another one on the bottom as well. So a lot of people would ask, why do we need to go to the moon? Well, lots of reasons really. Number one is food. Think of the amount of food we could grow here and send back to Earth. Think of the amount of food we could grow here and send back to Earth. Next one is, think of the amount of food we could grow on here, here, and on here, and send it to Mars. So, you know, we could go from Earth, travel to the moon, from the moon, travel to Mars, back, and back. You know, there's a lot of stuff to be mined on here. We can take a lot of stuff from this and bring it back to Earth, and there will just be so much that we could do with this. Now, the moon has a lot of uses. We can mine it. It has tiny bits of regolith, let's say, and inside that has about 50% oxygen, some percentage of hydrogen, abundance of it actually, hydrogen-3 I believe, and we've got calcium, iron, lots of stuff. There is so much on here. We can make water, we can grow crops, we can make rocket fuel. So, you know, this is a good way of ensuring that we can get food here, from here to here. If we have, like, let's say the Americans get there and they are going all out with their robotics and they're mining and they want to set a colony up there, isn't it easier and healthier to have a program that sends food from the moon and we can send food from Earth? If we had a colony on here and a colony on here, plus Earth's beautiful colony, we can all work as teams. As we need something that we don't have, okay, Mars sends it to us. Okay, they need something that we have and they don't have it, we send it to them. And then both of us, well, hang on, we need something from you, but we need a bit from you. So they send it to here, they send it to here, and we keep each other in supply of food. I think this is a very healthy way of planet hopping in a way. And what do we learn from each one of these? Well, we've learned a lot from Earth. But what we learn from Earth, can we really apply it to the moon without no atmosphere? Well, no. What we learn from Mars, can we learn from Earth? Well, no, because it's a complete different makeup. And what this does to human knowledge is it boosts our knowledge, our understanding. We understand Earth, and we know Earth. We've got limited understanding, and we only think we know about this. We only think we know about this. Like Mars, if you like. We only think we know. But there's so much more that when we're there, we have a lot more to understand. Knowing's one thing, but understanding is something completely different. And why would all of this be important? Well, if for whatever reason, in billions of years' time, let's say, Earth is no longer habitable, and by that time, maybe the moon, what we've built on the moon with these pressure domes and different things, we may be able to apply it on Earth, but let's say that we can't, and we can't here. What's a better healthy way that when we know how to make rockets out of what we have without wasting any of our resources, we can then go here. And then this gives us a little bit longer. And then the next ones, and the next ones. That's getting a little bit far field now, but let's just stick with that for now. We have a safe haven to go to, another world to go to, if this one becomes no longer, let's say it becomes hostile, becomes so hostile we can't stay there anymore. We have a stepping stone, for sure. Let's say we can't stay here either because the sun's orbit might have started to take over. You know, we can go to Mars. But if we were to go there at the last minute, we got a lot to learn and a lot to understand, and that could cause us to have many failures. And failures, whilst we're in the beginning stages, are not good, because that's extinction. I always believe that the art of life, the reason for life, is to live. So you rise up on Earth. That's one part of life. You have to understand your environment, but it doesn't stop there once you understand your environment. You must move on, understand something else, move on, understand something else, and so on and so on and so on. So, let's get back to the moon for a bit. And I was talking about these things called pressure domes, and this is sort of what I'm going on about. Now I might need to adjust my camera just a smidgy. There we go. So here we have pockets in this one. I kind of like holding this one more. So you know, we have a pocket that's a pocket of foam that stops the heat from escaping. That's very good. Excellent. We have an ozone pocket, which should help stop radiation from the sun penetrating in. And you know, and there was also another one which was a nitrogen pocket. Now, nitrogen is very good for stopping other gases from leaking out. I don't know whether you know that you can get some sort of nitrogen compressors that put nitrogen air into your tires. And what this does is, yes, the air leaks eventually, but not as quick as what oxygen would. So if we had a layer of this, that in this piece here is, like I put number 4, is basically Earth's gases that match the pressure of Earth, basically. These, inside this dome, matches the same pressure as what we feel on Earth. So once you're in it, you can take off your spacesuit. You don't need a spacesuit. And then we can grow inside here, grow foods and different stuff. Now, I say that there's no need for a spacesuit. I kind of drew my really crazy astronauts here on their maypole, if you like. And you've got your life support system in here, which could, as a backup, they could breathe the air in here, but as a backup, wouldn't you want them to breathe their own air from out of here, and we'll save the rest for growing plants. And you also have a controlled pressure system, CPS and LSS. LSS is life support system, and CPS is the controlled pressure system. So it also controls the pressure, because you know if you get sunlight beaming down on here, it's going to want to cause the gases to expand. Well, inside here, it would start to reduce some of the gases in there not to pop this. And again, if there was no light on this side, it might want it to make it collapse in. So this would then have some stored gases inside here that would then put the gases out into the environment, which then inflate it and always keep it up. Now, the main objective to all of this is to grow food, lots of food. Lots and lots and lots of food. Why? Well, food is one of our, we need it. Basically, at the end of the day, there's no ifs or buts about it. You can grow all sorts of food. Well, what about heating it up? Won't these lights in here give it lots of heat? And what about the sunlight beaming down on it? Isn't that going to cause it to get really, really hot inside here? Well, yes, it could do that. So, again, I came up with another idea, which was this. I called this the Egyptian cooling system. Ha, such a strange name. So think of this as the dome, rather than a house building here as another way of cooling things down. So imagine this is the dome, and underneath it we have a box. Another dome underneath, let's say. And the one thing that we can guarantee about hot air is it rises, and it would rise to the top. And it would then be sucked into these vents here, and it would come down and be put inside this other dome, if you like, or storage container inside here. And when this hot air begins to cool down, it will slowly but surely start to make its way downwards, because cold air sinks, hot air rises, and it would then eventually fall down here, and then there you are. Every time some air gets sucked out of here, cold air from here gets pushed out into the system. And this would constantly keep it cool at a stable temperature over and over. So if you needed it 17 degrees or 23 degrees, this would constantly maintain it. And if you wanted to go a little bit more further, you could also use water and put in some sort of radiation pipes in here. Now, this is on my website, a better drawing of this one where I've done it on computer. Most of these will be done on computer. Make your way over there and you'll get to see this if you want to understand the principle a little better, and a nice cleaner drawing than this one. This is initially just a scribble. For me, this is just how everything starts off. A little idea comes into my head and then I scribble it down like this, and then from this I then make my masterpiece, if you like, on my website. So anyway, what we have here is hot water, cold water. Now this didn't get hot because we boiled it, this got hot from the heat. So when the hot air falls into this, it then heats this tub of water, and because it's in an enclosed system, I don't know whether you know this, that if you put hot water it will always go towards the top and it will push up, but as it pushes up and it wants to cool down, and the cooler water will also push into the system, so it will constantly loop itself because the hot water will always want to get to the higher level, and because this one is so low, the hot air that heats these pipes, if you like, the hot water will push upwards, and as that pushes up it causes the cold water to push in and fill in the void, so that it constantly flumes around. Or we can add, which I think I did on my document that's on my website, I've added a little pump on here so that we can pump it if needs be, if it just didn't work. So anyway, the heat comes down here, goes through these grooves, and then as it cools down, it falls down to the bottom here, and then it comes back out. So the hot air goes in, has a place to cool, and the ground would be a lot colder than the sunlight beaming down on the dome, if you like. So, with all of that in mind, moving on to the next part, which would be making the dome here. So, okay, hard to understand this right now, but let me try and see if I can explain this to you. So here we have the dome for growing food. That's the dome, but we're looking down from the moon, and if you imagine the equator of the moon is around here somewhere, so we're in a sense looking down on the moon, whereas on the last bit we were looking at it from the side. Now we are looking down and the dome is in the center here, so it would be probably more like this one, if this helps you understand it. Way a bit close, but there you go. So we're now looking downwards onto it, and here's the top of the dome, and then we have the railway track right here. If you see this one here, this is the railway track, and there's the solar train that I was talking about, and there's the sun. So you can understand this is pretty big. This is very big. And what we have is, how do you get the power from the solar train into the dome without actually stopping the train or any need of batteries? Here, it's just quite simple. And I'm sitting here thinking about this one myself. So if you can see here, we have one side, the outer side of the rail track is blue, and the inner side of the railway track is red. So if we take the wheel on one side of the rail and we put the solar panels plus to it, let's say, no, let's go for blue and we're going to go for the minus, we'll keep with what the drawing says, and on this wheel here we decide to connect the power from this solar panel will then go into the blue, so the plus will go into the blue. And on the other side of the train, so we've got the plus on this side, so the wheels that are here on a train, this side, are all minuses. They're all minuses. And then we have the other side of the rail, which is the inner circle of the rail, is going to be plus. And that's where we've done it red. So the wheel here, the wheel here, the wheel here, the wheel here, the wheel here. So the solar panels plus will touch the wheels on this side and put the charge into this track. And the minus will put the charge into this side of the track. And then underneath the track, we will then run a wire or some sort of device that would do this, allow us to do this. And we'd run the wire to that one and it will go into the dome. And then we'd run one from the plus and go here. And then there you have it, plus minus, run your stuff off of that no matter where the train is on the track. Now, the dome is pretty big, so remember, I don't think the electricity is going to run the whole length of the track, but I think it will run to a degree from here to here, let's say, in terms of power, but it would be more potent here. So that's why there are multiple power sources for the train to deliver its charge into the dome, and that's how it would work. So if the sun's let's just say the sun's movement, it's not the movement, it's the moon's movement, and us and the moon then moving around the earth. That's really complicated to understand all of that, so let's just think of it, the sun's movement around the moon. This way it makes it easier. So as the sun moves, and we've got the black pen as the sun, and we've got the silver pen as the train, both will follow each other around the moon and back around again, obviously, and then around and around, and this will constantly allow this solar train to pump the power that it's needed to operate this dome. Now, once that's a success, we can then move on to, I've labeled this one step 1, we can now move on to step 2, which step 2 is step 2-3, basically, because there's a lot more. Now this one gets a little bit more complicated, and obviously once I've done this on a computer, it will look a lot better than how it does right now, so I'm going to hold this one up out the way. So what we have here is the same dome and the same power inlets, and here's the solar train that we were talking about on here. But now we've got a lot more going on in this picture. So here's the solar train, the sun would be over here somewhere, and what we have here are now fixed solar panels. So if this is successful, we've got a place for the crew to stay, to build this up a bit more. The robots may have helped us with this. Now we can stay there, and we can take, again, using the pods, remember those storage pods I was talking about in the beginning? They would then be sent to the lunar space station, and we would then have inside there a lot of these solar panels, and then we'd bring them down to the surface and start installing them as described here, as a solar halo, or power halo if you like. And these are all solar panels that now are able, because we've got enough resources, number one, from what we've got from the moon in these mining pods, so we'd be mining the moon for different types of material that we need, sending it to Earth. Earth would be able to make some solar panels, and all of these solar panels would now dot around, and the solar train would still be in use, but it would no longer be needed to make power for this dome. The dome would now be being powered off of the solar panels. And there we have it. We now have a firm, permanent fixture on the moon. So these will catch the power no matter what. So the light side of the moon will always power the dark side of the moon, no matter where the sun is. And then we can get on with these other things. So in the green, I have a growing tube, and these brown are habitats. So crew could live in here. These are more growing domes. So we have the big initial dome to start with, and now we have some more growing domes on here where you can grow even more food inside these tubes. Lots and lots of food. And then we've got habitat. And then we have some more solar panels being built and installed around the outside of this perimeter, and all of these would then lock into these, which then would power the main one, and these would then also power the habitats, and these growing tubes here would also need some power as well. So some go back and some go inside this one, and some go inside the tube, some go inside this one, and then we now start getting the fixtures of these ones putting down, which are more solar panels. And then the next stage on from this, which I've drawn it in a rough diagram, is to basically repeat the process. So what we would need to do on the next picture is, what I'm going to do is add some more railway tracks around the outside of here, and then after adding the railway track, you then have another mining bay, some more solar panels, and another set of growing tubes and habitats. And then again, railway track, mining bay, solar panels, and then you just keep repeating the process over and over and over and over and over and over again, until eventually, when you start from up here, and then you keep expanding, 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 and if the bottom part, someone at the bottom of the moon does the same thing, what you then have is complete colonization of the moon in steps, just by doing this one process in the beginning. From, you basically just run away with this process. So you'd have the dome up here, you'd have your railway track, your fixed solar panels, then your growing tubes, and then you'd have your mining area, and then you would have another railway track, and then so on, another set of solar panels, another set of these tubes, and you just keep going until you both met in the middle, and then you have complete colonization of the moon. And I think this is the most easiest way that we could do it, that would get power basically evenly across it, and we eliminate that problem with the power in the beginning. I think that's the most hardest part, is trying to figure out how do we get power. Now, I have heard some people talk about some quite crazy ways of getting power on the moon, and it just is not feasibly possible. I think the only way to do it is via these railway tracks and then feeding the power into here. Once you've got this is the golden key. This is what allows you to get to this stage, this train that follows the path. And you would then use this afterwards. Like I said, it would no longer be used to generate the power anymore, because the power would be coming from the solar panels. This could then be used to mine stuff. So if we mine something from here whilst we're in the sunlight, and we need to get it to over here because you've only got 12 days of light, let's say, you'd put it on the train and the train would move it for you, and then we get it to here, and then we could offload it for 12 days and get it where we needed it to go. So if it needed to head to Earth, or we needed it to head inside one of these factories. Anyway, so that's how we can run away with this, and this is such a beautiful thing that we could do. And then we start utilizing the moon, and it's no longer wasted, and all of this food we can bring back to Earth, and it would just be absolutely fantastic. So I got one more on here, my red, white and blue rocket, and there's quite a lot of jargon wrote on here, which again, if you want this, it will be on my website, and then I will draw it in computer format, and then you can get more of an idea. So basically what these rockets will do is they're reusable in a way. Now, I've put basically hydrogen and oxygen, but the thing is, I don't know whether hydrogen and oxygen engine is enough to give us lift off the Earth. But the moon is smaller, and because the moon is so much more smaller than the Earth, the lift from it is so much more easier. So if we was to say that this bit here is enough fuel to get you off the moon, you would need this much fuel to get you off the Earth. You would need this much fuel off of here and off of the moon to get you lifted with a payload. So that's an extra fuel for payload. And then you could have a hydrogen oxygen reserve. Now, this is just thinking out the box at the moment, and I think I might need to go a little bit more in detail with this, but this purely is the next step on here. Somewhere over here you would need to have some sort of rocket capabilities to get your food, your mining, let's say elements that you've dug out of the ground of the moon, the food that you've grown, sort of bits of iron and stuff like that. You'd need to get it into a rocket and then send it off to Earth or send it off to Mars. Now, this gets you off the moon. This type of a rocket will get you off the moon. But let's just say we were able to better the process so well that we were able to get off the moon, and this would then land on Earth. So think of this for an example. This is crazy. This would then take this much fuel to get off of the moon, and then it would land on Earth. And then on its fuel that it made from mining the moon, it could then leave Earth and go back to the moon again on its fuel that it mined from the moon. That's crazy. So what this does is, if this is number one, it's a reusable rocket that's recycling. It'll ensure that we are not depleting any of Earth's natural resources. So we're not taking any fuel from the Earth. And then you could say, well, what about its pollution? It's going to create pollution because it's hydrogen and oxygen. Yeah, it's water. You're going to be putting pure water on the moon. You're going to be taking off and putting pure water on Earth, and so forth and so on. So yeah, you'd need a lot more to probably get to Mars, that's for sure. Whether it'd be good enough or not, that's remains to be seen. But you're not using any resources that you've gathered from Earth. You're using it purely from what you've got from the moon. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. It will not cost a penny to operate. again, once you have all of this stuff built, it will be self-sufficient. And once you then have this rocket mining the moon and we can make fuel from it and the fuel gets really good, it's not going to cost you a penny. Why? Well, because the initial build would have cost you a penny, but it would then start making money and generating its own money because you're reusing, recycling. So, you know, I think this is absolutely fantastic that we could do this. The potential is there. So, again, taking it from here to there, to here to there, to here to there, taking the food back and forth, the oxygen that the plants have made whilst you've grown your food, let it out in Earth's atmosphere. Oxygen is great. Grab some more gases from Earth and then bring those over to the dome, and the plants inside the dome can then start converting those gases back into oxygen, and then we can take that back to Earth, release that back into Earth's atmosphere, slowly but surely reversing the effects of global warming. Again, absolutely brilliant. So if this rocket works, this is one way to do it. And there was another rocket, again, this one's already drawn out fully on my website, and if I can get this in the shot as much. Anyway, so if I just pan this from the top, there's the top, and there's the bottom. Now this is a monster of a rocket. Now this one uses a process that is quite strange, okay? So inside here you have water that's pressurized, and then you have a pressurized air at the top. Pressurized water, pressurized air, pressurized water, pressurized air. That is all it is. When you then say lift off, if you like, this then discharge at an alarming rate of speed. The pressurized water then starts to rush out so fast that it starts to create this thing called lift. And that is a great thing. Now, how this works is, have you ever seen a killer whale? This is quite a bad example, but still, it's the only example I've got to hand. When a killer whale is chasing a seal and it's going through the water, and then all of a sudden it rockets and it pushes out the seal out of the water and it goes into the air, and then it splashes back down into the water again. This rocket works on that principle, that your payload is just going to be pushed, and then the rocket's going to fall back down, and the momentum from that is going to keep pushing your payload up towards the International Space Station, and from there it will then be transported. So the pressurized water and air that fills up inside this rocket will always come back out into Earth, and you won't. So basically, if this rocket was filled up with all of its stuff, its pressurized air, its pressurized water, and it was in space and you let it off, you lose all of your water and your air from Earth. So slowly but surely you start to deplete your resources, which is not a good thing. So this one will only go up to as far as to a point, let's say, and then the rocket itself will drop back down, but the momentum into that payload will still keep going.